Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And welcome to another edition of Spoiled Saturdays. I feel like we haven't been consistent necessarily with what should be a spoiled Saturday.
I thought we had a timeline.
There is a timeline, but we've definitely done some movies, and it's usually my fault, that probably should have been a spoiled Saturday.
Oh.
Because, well, I think it's changed now because of social media, but the long-standing rule is 10 years.
Right. I've definitely been spoiled on Wolverine and Deadpool. Like, I know all the things coming. And I'm like, oh, well, that's social media. Immediately.
Spoil culture. Yeah, immediately. I'm like, well.
I don't hate it. You know, I'm one of those.
Sometimes I do.
I know. Like, you do. You hate it in general. You like the wait and the build-up. I do not care. As in fact, I need it, probably.
I like the choice. I wish we had more choice.
Yeah.
Because I actually read a whole interesting article about that in Fallout where people were like, we really should have not binged this. We should have, like, had more time to talk about this. I was like, well, yep. But anyway. I have a lot of thoughts about it. And I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. But this one is definitely a spoiled Saturday because it came out in 2023. And this is actually kind of related to what we were just talking about. I mentioned it recently. I've sort of been in a strange place where I don't want to watch things that I love, like television. I don't want to watch television shows, essentially. I was always kind of weird about watching television shows because I get committed and then I get stuck. But usually, even if I didn't want to watch a TV show, I would watch it if it was like a show I really liked or a franchise I really liked or something. And I've taken a step back from that for now. I will get to it all eventually, but I was taking a step back, which means I've watched a lot of horror movies, so many horror movies, and like horror movies that are just one and done and I can move on. So that's how I found this movie, which is not a horror movie, by the way. It was advertised to me as one.
It said it's a horror comedy. That's how it advertised to me.
It's a horror comedy. I think it just came out. I think I had a free trial of something and it was under like, the horror banner.
Oh, yeah.
And I just read the description and I was like, yes, I will watch this.
I feel like only you would be the one to find this movie. I think you are its publicity, to be honest.
I told you, if I had more time, I would start a blog that's just like obscure horror movies I have found.
Yes.
Because a lot of times after I watch a horror movie, I like to look it up afterwards. And, did I miss something? Was there some deeper meaning I didn't get? There was like nothing for this movie. There was nothing for several movies I've watched recently. And I'm like, I could really write something about. I could be the one.
You could be the one. Maybe you should be the one.
Here we are with a podcast about it. Yes, and I did watch this recently with I've watched it several times with different friends, and it's been really, really fun because nobody knows what the hell's going to happen in it. And I'm like, yep, it's a fun time. We're talking about 2023 movie Scream Therapy. And this, I will say, as far as spoiled Saturdays go, if you are really looking for something that's not too long, it's like 80 minutes, and it's a wild time, and you don't want to be spoiled. I liked going into it not knowing anything. I thought it was super fun. Then I highly, highly recommend you do that, and then come back. And just quick CW. I don't think we're really going to talk about it, but there's a lot of discussion of drugs and drinking in this movie. There's a lot of murder. I guess it depends on your definition of a lot, but I feel like one is enough. So there's murder. There is murder. So I will just put that in there. And we are going to talk about it because it's kind of key to some plot points. So yeah, Samantha, I'll just run through the plot.
Yes, do it. I don't think I could do it justice.
Oh my gosh, it is truly a wild one. So bear with me here. It is. Scream Therapy is, yes, a 2023 movie written and directed by Cassie Keat, who also briefly cameos in it and sings in it, I think. It stars Harley Brownwin as Avery, Rochelle Anderson as Jillian, Mandy Chung as Dylan, Jerry Courtney Austin as Mary Beth, Claire Delamar as Nora, Ryan Flaccus as Jeremiah, Skylar Bible as Zachariah, and Joan Kubasek as Billy. Which is interesting because I have a friend with that same name who's also an actor. I had to look it up. I was like, that wasn't you, was it? Have you moved on and changed a lot? Anyway, it opens with a group of 5 friends, Avery, Dylan, Mary Beth, Nora, and Jillian, all at this party. They are clearly very close, and we later find out they call themselves, in a bunch of group activities like improv, the Mother Mermaids. At this party, Avery breaks up with her boyfriend of 7 years after an argument about marriage. She's basically like, he's like, oh, good thing we're never going to get married. And she's like, what? And then it just goes downhill from there. She descends into post-breakup sadness, but her friends are determined to help her, so they drag her to an Airbnb that they've rented in the desert for scream therapy. Something Dylan says she got really into after watching Midsommar. This is another movie we've never done. We've talked about it a lot, but we've never done it.
Have we not? I keep thinking we have.
We haven't. But we've talked about it several times. So maybe in the future. Their Airbnb is super isolated in the desert, and it has 2 houses. And they designate one for the people who are going to do acid, which after a vote is Dylan and Nora. And then the other one is for the ones who won't be doing acid. It doesn't take long for Avery to find herself on the roof screaming about her breakup, how she feels she's ruined everything and it's too late to fix it, even though she is still in love with her ex. Her friends join her, and we learn all of their lives are in some form of flux or chaos. Dylan lost her job at the bar she worked at after punching the manager. Jillian is afraid she won't be good at being a single mom. Mary Beth is bored and broke and super into Nicolas Cage. I love that she has a hoodie that just says Nicolas Cage's face. That is so good.
Which, when she mentions, I really thought she was talking about Nicolas Cage's face.
His face, yes. Yeah. But it's just written. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And she thinks that all of her choices have been wrong. And Nora joins in with everything is pretty okay, but I didn't want to feel left out. But we learn her apartment burned down. And she's bunking with Dylan.
She's fine with it.
Yeah, she seems fine with it. They decide to go to a bar, which is like one of the only places nearby, for dinner and drinks, where they argue about who is the wild card in the group. Something is immediately off about the bar when they come in, though. There's just like a lot of creepy dudes eyeing them. There's a lot of missing people posters on the door. The bartender, Billy, is cool, though. The group is impressed with her and the cheapness of the alcohol. While Dylan is harassed by a dude with an Asian fetish, Nora sees 2 cute guys sort of dressed in a way that would suggest a religion of some type. Like Mormons is the vibe I was getting. Apologies, but that was just the vibe I was getting. The group proceeds to get absolutely wasted, save Jillian. The next day, they are completely hungover, except for Jillian, and don't even wake up until late in the afternoon. They are too hungover to do scream therapy. However, Dylan and Nora do take the acid as planned, and we cut to nighttime, the 2 of them running wildly, saying things like, oh, I'm never gonna die. Mary Beth and Jill convince Avery to unblock her ex on social media and like just in general on her phone. But they are then distracted by a call by Dylan and Nora to moon the moon. So yes, they show their ass to the moon, their beehole, as Dylan calls it. When they get back to the house, something seems off. The doors open. One by one, they are captured by the 2 men that were in that kind of religious getup from the bar, all except Dylan. Nora and Jill are tied to a pole, while Mary Beth and Avery are tied to chairs in this lit up circle. with Avery convinced that they're going to be killed. The two men are arguing about what to do with Nora and Jill, because one of them doesn't want to kill them, and the other one's like, yep, we have to. And they get a call from their mysterious leader telling them to tie up any loose ends, including Dylan. Meanwhile, Dylan, who is quite high, pops up and is able to communicate with her friends and is now on a mission to free them. Zachariah thanks Avery and Mary Beth for being sacrifices, but Dylan distracts him before he can continue. She's able to free Nora and Jill before Zachariah and Jeremiah realize that it was a ruse and they come out. Mary Beth trips Zachariah and he falls on his own ceremonial knife and dies. Only now, twist, he is possessed by a demon. And they've kickstarted a ritual that means that they have to find 5 sacrifices to account for the number of people in the circle when the knife was used before sunrise. They tie up and interrogate Jeremiah, who reveals that they are members of a group that the women label an incel cult, a male group that is not allowed to have sex until they are 35, sacrifice women to this demon, and then they sow their seeds and leave behind a card saying that any children are welcome into their fold as long as they're male. Though the leader of the group says that their semen is too strong to produce any female children anyway. The demon confirms the ritual is real, but the cult leader is fake and likely just randomly picked a run-of-the-mill demon like him, closed his eyes and pointed. The group gathers to make a plan after they learn that the sacrifices don't actually have to be women. They argue about sacrificing the incel. Nora wants to spare him due to attraction/pity. Meanwhile, Mary Beth feels a pull towards the demon. Despite Avery's opposition, they vote to go to the bar and find the worst men that they can find and sacrifice them. Dylan, Nora, and Mary Beth, yes, they go and they ask the very confused bartender to direct them to whoever she thinks is the worst. It's a very fun montage scene. While Avery and Jill learn more about Jeremiah and his cult, he seems genuinely confused about basic questions they ask him. What happens to the mothers? What if a girl is born? The demon seems to confirm that he has been misled and lied to, as does a monitored call with his leader. They feel pity for him and let him go. He proceeds to become an absolute mess and eats ice cream and is just sad. The rest of the crew arrives with their assortment of jackass male sacrifices, but Jill interrupts them by saying, "We can't kill the incel." And they send the douchebags to the acid cabin and have another meeting where they all agree Jeremiah is pathetic and they shouldn't kill him. Through this, they also learn the demon is obsessed with, guess who? Nicolas Cage. And he resents that he only gets to come up to Earth when he is summoned and can't go to any of Nicolas Cage's restaurants. There's also a pretty great exchange about abortion here, because basically Jill is like, I can't die, I have a daughter. And they all melt about it. And Jeremiah and the demon are off to the side discussing whether or not life begins at conception and if they need another sacrifice because the baby was in the circle. And Jill shuts it down with you don't get to have a say in this. Avery tries to convince the group they aren't murderers. They can't do this, but is outvoted. It's decided that Mary Beth will make a poison cocktail to kill all of their sacrifices, while Dylan and Nora will go back to the bar and find one last sacrifice to make up for Jeremiah. Then a lot of stuff happens at once. Mary Beth makes the poison drink but knocks it over while making out with the demon, who is into her too. Avery goes to warn their sacrifices while Jeremiah tries to stop her, but they find them all dead. Dylan and Nora realize that they are still high from the acid, and 2 other members of the cult capture them. So they all come to the sacrificial circle. Dylan and Nora are held at knife point, with the leader of the cult now there too. Jeremiah tries to convince the other cult members that they've been lied to, but before he can, they are killed by arrows. One of the men from the bar emerges, claiming he has been looking out for them and knows about the cult. But when they won't let him kill Jeremiah, he decides that they are part of a vague, grand, lizard people 5G conspiracy. But before he can kill them, he is killed by Billy, the bartender. She tells them she knew there was trouble when they were rounding up the worst of the worst, gives Dylan the key to her bar, sprouts angel wings, and flies away. Okay, now they realize they only need one more sacrifice before sunrise to complete the ritual and keep themselves from dying, because everybody who has died within the circle and spending an eternity in hell. A series of distractions follows, including Avery's ex reappearing with a heartfelt apology and proposal, which Avery accepts. Mary Beth takes the sacrificial knife into the circle and says she's figured it out and that she is the wild card. She stabs herself to complete the sacrifice count. Avery's ex is understandably confused by what's happening. Mary Beth comes back to life because she used the sacrificial dagger, and through weird demon stuff, she is able to basically share bodies with the demon in Zachariah. Jeremiah tries to kiss Nora, but she rebuffs him, and he accepts it, though he has no idea what consent is, and she decides to teach him. Then we get our happy endings. Avery moves into an apartment with her boyfriend with marriage on the table. Dylan takes over Billy's bar. Jill has her baby and names her Billy. Nora works with Jeremiah to deprogram other members of his cult. Mary Beth and the demon go to Nick Cage's restaurants. The end.
The end.
Yeah,
and
so
they meet Nick Cage. You forgot that part.
Yeah, they do. They do meet Nick Cage.
We see a quote-unquote Nick Cage with no face, just his body, and someone doing a bad impression of Nicolas Cage.
Also, like, I doubt he works at those restaurants, but it was a nice touch.
It was a nice touch.
And then if you get to the end, there's a fun little song that they all sing together about the song of the cricket people, which goes back to a line.
I missed that.
Oh, it's really cute. It's short, but it's just cute because that was one of the most random lines. Nora says it when she's on acid and it's like, I just spoke to a cricket. It sang me the song of his people. So they have the song of the people, the cricket people at the end. So yeah, it's just like a fun little happy endings abound. And then a bunch of like interesting commentary about incels and feminism and stuff. So I had a grand old time. It was a fun gym that I found.
A gym.
Yes. And one of the things I liked about it, it kind of reminds me of what we talked about with Joey about bottoms. I sort of liked they were all hot messes. Like they were just a mess in this. They were on drugs, they were drunk, they were making out with demons, they were flirting with incels, they're running away, they're being avoidant, like all kinds of things like that. But it did remind me of things, I mean, not like that, but just times I've gone out with a group of friends and we get kind of messy and talk about the things that we're dealing with. And so I thought that was fun. But yes, I would say friendship is the biggest theme of this. After I watched this, I looked up who was in it because I could have sworn I recognized somebody in there.
Yeah, I thought I recognized someone too.
One of the demons in Book of Boba Fett.
He was kind of the best actor or something.
Well, I wouldn't say that in Book of Boba Fett, but whatever.
I mean, best actors in this movie, Scream Therapy.
Well, I looked them up and they've done a bunch of stuff together.
Oh yeah,
like they have done yes.
Oh, they like
I think they're like a crew
together?
a crew.
Okay, that makes sense.
And they like horror too. I think they've done like a Scream fan movie. I'm pretty sure. But so anyway, I think they're close outside of this.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was cool to see. And I did like how like there are disagreements that they have as it goes on, and they do call out some of each other's. They also support each other, like no matter what.
Yeah.
But I do like how it's never. A lot of times that we get that kind of cat fight element, and that never happens. No. It was just sort of a. I don't. I think you might be running away from this problem, but I will support you if I'm here for you. I'm going to always choose you.
Right.
So seeing them go through that and sticking together throughout, and just having a lot of history, like the mother mermaids when they're like, oh yeah, that's our improv team, and that's our this, and that's our this, and that's our this. Like just the name of all these things that they do together. And the demon being like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And yeah, like the whole Scream therapy thing of them finding comfort and letting it out with each other. If you haven't seen Midsommar, I know people have different takes on that scene, but it's just like women screaming together as they're going through. Like one of them is crying, so they all start like crying and screaming together. And a lot of people, after they saw that, a lot of women thought it was pretty cathartic. There's a lot to break down in that whole movie, which yes, we'll get to one day. But that was sort of the impetus of, Dylan saying, I got into it after Midsommar.
Right.
That they all go and they do at the end, they finally get to do the Scream therapy, which by the way was not when they were screaming their problems. This is just like you just scream together. Right. Yeah. And I did think like, when the movie starts and Avery's going through this breakup and they find her in like dire straits in her apartment, like just a mess under all this laundry. The apartment's a mess. It reminds me of the happy hours we've done in the past of like the power of the wine or having those friends where you're like, I just need someone to vent to. And I liked how they were kind of, yeah, maybe you should. Maybe you did make a mistake here, but I'm going to back you up. Right. But also like kind of pushing her to, you're still clearly upset about this and you still really like this guy. If you really want to go for it, then you should go for it. So the importance of having those friends in your life that will like hear you and they're going to support you, but they also might give you that advice that you need.
Right.
I did think it was funny, the labels within friend groups, because when they're fighting about who's the wild card, because I do think that happens in friend groups a lot of time. And there being some trope flipping here in terms of like, it didn't always shake out that way. And it was a lot more like everybody is all over the place, in my opinion, which I appreciated.
They really were.
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to bring up the bartender, Billy, because I love, like, Dylan comes in and she's just like immediately like, these trying to, she's just real tough and is like in your corner, but also is like, I know you can handle yourself, but I'm here to provide the support. But she was great. I loved her.
I like that she just randomly popped out and she's like, I'm an angel, obviously. Yeah. She didn't care about the demon part. She was just making sure the girls were fine. I'm like, that's okay. Random.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that's why I love, like, when my friends watch it, they had no idea it was coming. Yeah, and I believe the line after that is Mary Beth saying, like, I literally can't be surprised by anything else now.
There's nothing else anymore. As she flies away, because she flies away. That part was, where did you come from? And she just flew away. Yeah. The budget was great for this movie.
Yes. Hey. I loved it. And then, yeah, we do get this whole conversation about incels and cults and demons, which by the way, when I saw the summary and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this, it was essentially like 5 girls go on a trip to the desert for much needed like therapy or something. And then an incel cult tries to kidnap and sacrifice them. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh.
At what point in the movie did you realize, like, what was that? Like, you're like, wait, what is this movie? Like, at what point did you figure out like you were not watching what you thought you were watching?
I feel like it happened many times. I wasn't expecting the demon. I feel like when he was a demon, because until then there were some moments, it could have still been a horror movie. It had mostly just been funny, but it was like, there were some like, oh, creepy, he's back there, you know? And so I thought like it was going to take a turn, but then it took a turn in a way I wasn't expecting at all.
That is not the turn I expected.
Yeah. Oh, it's a demon now. And now they got to sacrifice people. Now.
Well, like at one point when he was like, they put me back by burning my body, I was like, why don't they just burn his body? Like, just set him on fire. Don't they just send him back? I don't understand.
Well, I don't know if that would stop the ritual.
Oh, to stop the taking of their souls.
I don't know. I mean, there was also the darker point where he pointed out that basically the people in the cult also got sacrificed at like 42 or something. It was grim. It was presented very humorously.
Right, of course.
Yes.
The dude deadpan. Oh, yeah, definitely. They're the worst. Oh, no, that's definitely, yeah. Oh, this is great. I'm enjoying this. You should definitely kill him.
Right. Yeah, he was a fun little chaos in the background a lot of times. Just watching them like try to figure this out. I did find a quote from Yahoo about this. Considering the film bills its cult as incels, it would be very easy to hammer that home in a menacing way, allowing revenge and redemption for the women. Instead, the men are portrayed as naive and controlled by suggestive propaganda. Sure, there's no shortage of idiots and souls to be found here, but there's a clear distinction between those who should know better and those who weren't taught better. So I do like the end credit scene where she's like teaching the
other incels. I already told you no. Stop asking.
Right. He's like, give me your number. And she says no. And he's like, can I have your number? No. But that was one of my favorite things. And, you know, it is like, we talk about this a lot. It's frustrating when you have to do the extra work of that. But it's also very clear he was pretty much just raised in this and was very confused and believed it wholeheartedly. And I really like that she didn't end up with him. I really like that he tried to kiss her and she's like, oh, no, no. And he was like, oh, okay.
She was more confused, like, oh, really? Oh, no?
Oh.
I just thought, okay.
Yeah. Which he admitted to her that he saw her and was attracted to her, and he was the one that chose them as the sacrifices, because they had been told that they would be happy to be sacrifices,
right?
And that's why they were screaming, because that they didn't want you to feel jealous that they were going to go to heaven, I guess. But he was trying to save her and Jillian, who Jillian later pointed out was like, that's still, you're killing my friends. Do you think I would have been super happy about that? And yeah, just that whole vibe of like, as women, when you go into a bar and it's all the men kind of turn and look at you and you're feeling out, I don't know about this. And there is, yes, motherhood in this, single motherhood. In fact, she does have a drink. And every time I'm like,
yeah, I was like, well, not only that was it a drink, but a shot,
Tequila.
like hard, like typically I see like a glass of wine or like half a glass of wine is the typical recommendation. So I was like, oh.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know what the new updated stuff is, because I know they come up with new things. So there's no shame in that. But I was like, wow. But I also liked with that they were in solidarity, because she was like not having the fact that she was the only sober one who's going to have to take care of all of them. She's like, please don't make me do this. And so at least two of them were like, yeah, okay, then we won't do it either and isolate you. Because at first they were going to, but then like having that, because I thought maybe this was going to be one of those moments too, where the trope of her being sober and having to be like taking care of all of them and like whatever, whatnot. But they, you know, they did that. I was like, oh, that's kind of nice, even though they still weren't. They still had to be taken care of. Like the chaos was still there.
The chaos was definitely still there. Yes, that is for sure. See again, re-drugs, which only two of them did, but they caused a lot of chaos through it. I did love. There's a scene where, you know, they're realizing they're still really high and can't drive. And they get distracted by like, what's that show? And I immediately knew it was Entourage.
Me too. It was like the douchebags. What's that show with the douchebags? And I was like,
it's like Sex in the City, but for men.
Like even before she said with a group of guys of douchebags who hate, I was like, Entourage. Like even before she said Sex in the City, and then I was like, oh yeah,
yes.
Oh yeah.
I did too. That was so funny. But she does, at the end, Jillian does have her baby. And as I said, she named her Billy after the angel/bartender. And then there is that brief conversation on abortion. There's also kind of a funny part where Avery and Jill are trying to prove to the other three that this guy is like really sad and he doesn't know anything. And they were like, who's Ruth Bader Ginsburg? And he's like, a spy?
Yeah.
And like,
a prophet for George Peterson. Yeah. And I was like, oh, what is this is incel behavior.
This is an incel. Yeah. And then I do love at the end because there's a funny line where Nora's like, you could have been crushing for decades. That he could have been having sex this whole time, essentially. Right. And then at the end, Jeremiah's like, we don't have to wait till we're 35 to have sex. And one of the other cult members says, surely you jape. So good. Oh, then, you know, through the cult leader, you do see a lot of the things we see in incel conversations. Like girls aren't as strong. They wouldn't survive, wouldn't be born. A lot of things like that. Not thinking about the mothers at all. Having to sacrifice women to have sex. But I did think it was interesting. And again, this is just me. I like to read deep into things where I'm not sure. But I do think it's interesting, like the conversation that you could have about the patriarchy being a cult that we're raised in. And because if you like go back to that Yahoo quote, it's like, that's just what he knows because that's what he was raised in. And it's horrible, and it involves sacrificing women and a lot of misinformation and a lot of ignorance. And so I just couldn't. I was like, maybe a bit of a parallel here. Of course, conspiracy. I was not expecting that when the crossbow guy was like, you're one of the lizard people with the 5G. Wow.
The lizard people. Yeah.
Yes. And then Nicolas Cage, of course, and having the demon have his heartfelt moment about Nicolas Cage and his versatility.
Versatility.
Yes.
Yo, he's a national treasure, literally.
Yes.
I did like that line. I was like, oh, look at you.
It was good. And what does he call? He calls them donut. He doesn't call them loopholes. He calls them donuts.
Yeah.
Because Nicolas Cage has a donut
does Nicolas Cage own a donut chicken shop, really?
I believe so.
Does he? Okay, I didn't know this. So this even over my head. I was like, are they trying to make Nicolas Cage into something else? Like, because I didn't realize he actually had one. So
I'm pretty sure. Well, listeners, write in if you've been to it.
Send us A donut? I guess you can't really do that.
No.
One day we'll have a
No.
Nicolas Cage donut.
One day, maybe.
If it's real. If it's real.
If it's real. Is it a big conspiracy? But yeah, this was a fun one. I really hope if you are interested, I really recommend it. I'm kind of sad if you got spoiled by it and this was your first, because it is fun to go into. But yes, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. It was certainly fun for me. And yeah, if you go out and watch it, come back, report back, let us know. And if you have any suggestions, because I do like finding movies that are a bit off the beaten path. So if you have any suggestions in that realm or for any other thing you would like for us to talk about, please let us know. You can email us at stephanieandmomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I Never Told You. We are also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.